Hi everyone and welcome back to Scholastically Natalie. If you're new here, welcome. Hopefully if you enjoy this video, you'll be inclined to like and subscribe. If you've returned, please hit that subscribe button. If you're interested, you can find me on Instagram at Horde of a Dice Dragon. I hope you enjoy the video. Hi, today we're going to be focusing on another Let's Roll and designing a character, but we're going to do an in-depth look at my first ever D&D character named Evanaria. If you don't remember, I did talk a little bit about her in our last Let's Roll video. So again, this is going to be something focusing on the player life and less of the DM life. So I was a new player, so I made a pretty new character. So again, race Wood Elf, class Grave Cleric, and we were running a homebrew campaign. I got her from level 1 to level 17. Although the 17 was more of an incidental warlock level than an actual earned level, and I gave her a noble background. And the picture is, of course, my mini, because we use Legos for minis, and it is wonderful, honestly. So, for Evanaria, she ended up, because we finished our campaign, she ended up being the champion of Perseus, who's the god of death, the wife of my roommate's character, Moriarty, and basically a giant adrenaline junkie. We like to envision her and her husband adopting 3 children and living with their stupid giant white dragon that they've befriended. But before this entire look and character came into being, I started with probably the most basic character design in existence, which was, hey, I've run away from an arranged marriage. Again, all images that are drawn in any way, shape, or form are from my wonderful DM Sam. I will be, again, including his link in the description, because he's an awesome artist and deserves all the love. Actually, if you're interested, our DM challenged us over winter break one year to make playlists for our characters and offer some form of explanation with it, and I did end up A, winning that contest, and B, making a probably 2-hour and 30-minute playlist. It was only an hour, but then I decided over another break to add more onto it. So if you are interested in that, you can find it on Spotify under Evanaria's Journey with the username Nat attached to it. So we have the OG party, which actually originally started with 4 players, and then we grew and grew and grew until I think at one point we had 8 to 10 people at the table at once, or at least 8 to 10 characters being played at once. It was a little rough for a bit. I think this is the first whole party picture we have, although by then we were already missing a couple party members and have gained a couple party members. And then our final party that we ended up with all our minis. This was a long journey. Let's see, that was about a 2.5-year campaign. It was really long running, and we had so much fun. And our beautiful DM made us an entire banner, especially for our last session, with all of our players and player characters that either died or ended up having to quit. It was, I don't know, it was a long 2 years that I like to think about. It was really awesome. But I want to talk about an in-depth look at a character. So, over the stretch of 2 years, I managed to get my mildly insecure, previously noble, obsessed with healing elf being ready to murder things. Which was definitely an interesting journey, but I had the main idea be, hey, my character was the second born of a noble family, so she got tossed into the temple from a young age, and eventually was going to be forced into an arranged marriage. for the benefit of her parents. And so she decided she didn't want to do that and ran away and became an adventurer. The best part of this, of course, is that my DM has noted that I am probably incapable of playing a cleric that is not a zealot. Because I end up making my gods the main stability for my clerics, and they will probably never ever betray them or ever be turned from a course that God sets them on, no matter what. But again, this was probably like a 5-sentence backstory that ended up becoming really elaborate because at one point, one member of our party, a dragonborn named Tiki, got kidnapped by a cult that needs to sacrifice her to raise Tiamat. And they had an airship and we did not. So we were significantly behind their progress. And we had to go back to a village where we had spared a necromancer because he promised not to stop being a necromancer. And then we had to harass him into letting us use his teleportation mirror to drop us on the outskirts of the Elven Kingdom capital so that I could go get my character to marry a prince and have him get me an airship as an engagement present. That was a trip. Especially because my DM was kind of like, what are you doing? And I was like, hi, we're going to use my backstory for my gain. And my DM was a pretty kind human, actually, and let me have an out of not having to give up my character immediately. I think I am one of 2 people who had their original character live and be there for pretty much every single session. The other one was our gunslinger. I found that character design, I simply go for the most simple. But we have had ones that are also incredibly intricate. I know that one of our members who ended up, having to leave because of circumstances, Tiki, the dragonborn who got kidnapped by the cult, we had an entire backstory that was going to happen, and then we ended up not being able to do it. But her kidnapping was what was going to set off an incredibly intricate backstory because our DM got really into the members of the dragon cult, so we ended up encountering them anyways, even after Tiki had left. Because he built it so that we would encounter an anti-party who had the exact people that could, counter us with the exact number, and they all had their own unique personalities and backstories, and it was honestly a really great time. I think everybody loved doing that fight, even though it probably took an extremely amount of time because, there was 12 people in total, 12 turns, 12, 13 turns that we had to take. It was a bit lengthy. But I have nothing but fond memories of that campaign. We had some frustrating times sometimes, but I don't think I had anything that had happened that I have just fond memories of. But again, my character's backstory was only relevant for the short time that I made it become relevant. The main thing that ended up driving us was events that happened during the campaign. Because at first my character just wanted to adventure and not ever have to deal with her family again. And we got to the point where the temple back in the Elven City said, hey, why don't you go check out this completely dead and half desecrated site? And I was like, sounds awesome. And dragged myself and all of our underleveled friends into that, level 20 dungeon, which resulted in one of us permanently dying. And all of our characters were traumatized from that, and that entire event flipped our party because people ended up having purposes for their characters. The gunslinger, who originally couldn't think of a good purpose for his character because he doesn't really like being tied to anything, and he's pretty neutral, he ended up deciding that it would be his purpose to go back there and get that paladin's body. And that's the main reason he stuck around with our group, and he decided he wanted to help us live because he struggled through that extremely threatening time with us. And it was so much a driving force between so many people's perspectives. And really that did become a giant motivation for everyone. Because, my character wanted to level right back up and go back there, which of course we eventually found out was, having a bunch of necromancy from a fallen angel live there, which was not great. But again, we adapted to events in the campaign, and I feel like that's something that people struggle with, wherein if the events of a campaign aren't going the exact way they want it, or if they feel that their goals aren't being met, they think they should trade out characters, or, swap what they're doing for something else, rather than trying to sort out maybe, hey, what would my character want to do, or hey, how can I change this situation or change my character to make this work. And I'm not saying, hey, you shouldn't swap out D&D characters, or you shouldn't do that, but personally I find it more fun to play with a longer lasting character than to be continually swapping them, because I don't get the same emotional fulfillment out of it. And I realize I might be the very opposite of people who don't care about emotional fulfillment. But for me, I think it's a lot more fun to adapt your character to the situation. Like, currently, if I hadn't, by the end of the campaign, if I hadn't changed my character's thinking, because she went from probably a lawful good character to being a lawful neutral to, chaotic good character, she probably wouldn't have gotten the end that she gained. She was willing to hurt people for her friends and for her god, and when at the beginning she would never have done that. And I feel that not adapting your character's circumstances kind of reflects poorly on you as a player. I'm not saying I'm going to think less of you for swapping out them, but I think it shows a certain lack of creativity. And there's definitely a difference between being stuck in a story and not having fun. Because if you sit there and say, I don't really see something that my character can work towards, so I'm just going to drop my character, versus I'm not going to continue having fun playing my character, that's an entirely different situation. And again, D&D is a game. My opinion doesn't ultimately matter, and nobody else's opinion should ultimately matter. As long as you are enjoying your D&D game and not ruining it for anybody else, that's really all that matters. And just remember, no D&D is better than bad D&D, as the D&D horror story subreddit will let us know. Always put yourself and your mental health before before toxic people in your lives that are dragging you down. If you dread going to D&D, if you dread seeing certain people, stop going, stop interacting with them. But we don't need to turn this into such a downtrodden video. I've had a lot of fun playing D&D. I've made amazing friends, people who I would like to keep in my life for a very long time. And I've had some truly awesome experiences, even if everything was just on a table and we were moving pieces of plastic stuck together around on said table. We've built and demolished entire worlds, and it feels awesome to have experienced that. I think that if you haven't tried D&D, it's definitely something to look into and get into. It's honestly a great experience when you find the right people that you click with. Having said that, I hope you've gotten something out of this video, whether it be about character design or just about D&D in general. I'll see you later. Scholastically Natalie, out. Thanks for watching, and I hope you enjoyed the video. Don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe, and if you're interested, you can find me on Instagram at Horde of a Dice Dragon. Scholastically Natalie, out.